now. It's time next for Media Watch with Emma James. Good evening, Emma.
Hi there.
Talks aimed at securing a Brexit deal seem to be making progress, even though we have just 20 days to the end of the month. But are we in a tunnel? What is a tunnel?
It is a very strange question that everyone seems to be asking right now. It's the word of the day. Are we in a tunnel or are we just in the dark? No one seems to know. The Guardian newspaper seems to be quite positive about all this. I will explain what the tunnel is in just a moment. They are saying that the EU27 have given the green light for Brexit talks to move into the key tunnel phase. However, they then say that Michel Barnier has secured the EU agreement to accelerate negotiations, and those two things aren't quite the same. A lot of people very confused. Our man in Brussels, Dave Keating, tweeted this. We've now moved from a Brexit pathway to a Brexit tunnel, according to Michel Barnier. This may just sound like strained metaphors, but in the lexicon of Brexit, it makes a big difference. We may actually be close to a deal, or it's all a charade. So once again, clear as mud. Now, some people are choosing this moment to use GIFs, make jokes and the like. This one has been shared quite widely. Here we go, everybody into the tunnel. Well, this one is supposedly live footage of the Brexit negotiations entering the tunnel phase, and he's clearly going to be there for quite some time. A very famous clip from a movie there. And this woman, who was a big fan of Ed Miliband, the former Labour leader, says, don't know about anyone else, but I personally wish I could enter a tunnel and not come out until we don't have to talk about Brexit anymore. I know how she feels.
I'll join her.
Exactly. Now, as for what this Brexit tunnel is, the Irish version of the Mirror has come up with a number of explanations for different jargon words being used very widely surrounding Brexit. Some of the explanations, if people still need them being explained to them, it's a little concerning at this stage in the game. But anyway, as for the tunnel, they say it's Brussels jargon for secretive and intensive talks among a select group of negotiators. If that sounds a little bit too straightforward, they also cite a curiously zen approach from one unnamed European Commission official, and this is quite possibly the best thing I've read all day. The tunnel is not a place, but a state of mind. Don't quite know what that means. It's all a bit Yoda from Star Wars, isn't it? But anyway, are we really in the tunnel? That's the most important thing to be discussing. And there is a lot of dispute as to whether we are or not. I suspect we're not. This gentleman is a reporter. He's the Europe editor for RTE, an Irish television station. He says the member states are hostile to the notion of a tunnel, and there's some annoyance that the idea is being widely disseminated. He says the green light is simply for more intense negotiations to see if a deal is possible, because once they enter the tunnel, as it's called, then that's when there's a real media blackout. They don't leak any information, and that's when, in theory, the end is in sight, the light at the end of the tunnel, if you like. This reporter from the Mail on Sunday says, tunnel update, understand we are not yet in the tunnel. Some hope and expectation we may enter it at some point over the weekend, but we are not there yet.
We'll see what happens. With Brexit, it's a story that keeps on giving and giving and giving. So let's see. In other news, Emma, the Nobel Peace Prize was announced today. Ethiopia's Prime Minister won the award, but he wasn't the favorite among book makers. It was, in fact, Greta Thunberg.
Yes, indeed. The 16-year-old climate change campaigner, Greta Thunberg, mobilised millions, but that was not enough for the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. Newsweek has an unusually cynical and perhaps not terribly accurate explanation for it, saying that Greta Thunberg was snubbed by the committee run by Norway, one of the world's biggest oil and natural gas exporters. A bit of a conspiracy theory going on there. Now, the Washington Post has a slightly more sensible piece on why Greta Thunberg didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. And fundamentally, it's because there is no, as of yet, scientific consensus on the link between climate change and conflict. People do believe it will happen eventually with the shortages of supplies and the like, but at the moment there is no agreement on that. Climate campaigners have been recognised before, but Al Gore, for example. But the committee now has said that it wants to stick closer to the original principles of Alfred Nobel, and that is the idea that it should go to someone who has advanced the abolition or reduction of standing armies. So it was no surprise really for the experts that it didn't go to Greta Thunberg, but the bookies very much thought that she had it in the bag. Unfortunately, the obsession with who didn't get it does seem to have rather overshadowed, unfairly, the winner himself, the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali, and his profile certainly fits what the Nobel always used to be about and now once more is again. His efforts to achieve peace and international cooperation and his decisive initiative to resolve a 2 decades long border conflict with neighbouring Eritrea. And I think this tweet really rather neatly sums up the impact that he's had, bearing in mind he's only been in power for 18 months. Watching families, mine included, reunite without meeting in a third country for the first time in 20 plus years, he did that. And these images show what it means for that neighbourhood, that border dispute to be set aside courtesy of Ethiopia's Prime Minister. And he managed that within just a few months of reaching office. And there are big hopes, a lot of optimism for what he can achieve in the future.
It's very nice when the Nobel Committee actually, because the hype builds up over this one person, then they surprise you with someone else, and you're like, they deserve it. So that's great. Emma, thank you very much for that. Emma James there with Media Watch.